tell them what your name is and who your parents were.
Okay. My name is Carrie Irene Schaefer. And I was born in East Moline at 15th Avenue. And that house is still standing. I don't know how new it was when I was born, but I am 90 years old plus, give or take a few months. And,
Your mother, what? Who was your mother?
my mom was Clara. Well, before she was married, she was Clara Merle Schrader. And then she married my dad, which was Insert Caswell Schaefer. So,
And where was your mom born?
my mom was born in probably Bonaparte, Iowa.
You don't know when? When?
Yeah, she was born October 19th, 1898.
Okay, what about Grandpa?
And Grandpa was born, well, there was some discrepancy there. He was born in October, and then when he sent for his birth certificate, they said he was born in September 11th, on September 11th.
What year do you know?
1898. No, that was Grandma. 1890.
1890. Okay. So, and he was born in Enid, Oklahoma? Is that?
Enid, Oklahoma,
Uh-huh.
or thereabouts.
Okay. What do you remember about your grandma and grandpa?
My grandma and grandpa loved me.
That's good.
What were their names?
Grandpa's name, which was my mom's dad, his name was Virgil Clinton Schrader.
Right.
And he studied to be
Was he a pharmacist?
a pharmacist. But he didn't like that, and he turned out to be a chef.
Where did he work at?
He had his own
Restaurant?
restaurant.
Do you remember where that was?
It was where Hardee's is now. Is there still Hardee's?
Right there on First Street in East
Yeah.
Moline?
Uh-huh.
Yes. Didn't they live right around there too?
Yeah, there was a big house there. And he had a big, nice business. The streetcar used to come around there, and when they changed the streetcar line, then he moved the whole restaurant. I remember seeing him move the restaurant on some kind of a wagon, not a kid's wagon, but anyhow, and they moved it then to 19th Street in East Moline, where oil station is now. There was a big house there. There was lots of property around. Every 4th of July, Grandpa built, well, he only built it once, a big bench for all his kids, because he sold fireworks on for the 4th of July. And what was left over, he shot off for his grandchildren, but all the neighborhood kids could come and sit and watch him too. That's one thing Grandpa did. I was youngest of the 4 kids, and that was Grandpa's other grandchildren. He only had 4.
Who were they?
Harold and me, and Lola and Dorothy.
Okay, so
But he liked me the most.
And what did he used to call you?
Well, that was my great-grandpa.
Okay.
And my great-grandpa used to call me Bumblebee.
And tell us a little bit about your great-grandpa.
He had one of his legs shot off in the Civil War. And all the guys would come, all the Civil War veterans, I guess we should call them, for his birthday. And Aunt Lola, he lived with Aunt Lola and Uncle Ray and Grandma and Grandpa. They all lived together.
What was his name?
Grandpa?
Great-grandpa.
Great-grandpa was, he was either James or John, and I'm not sure which one.
Okay.
John was his uncle, or James was his uncle, and the other one, they were...
James was your great-grandfather's uncle. Is that
Yes.
right? Okay.
And he run the hospital in Iowa City. The uncle did, and he taught my great-grandpa to become a doctor. And that's how he was the doctor in the Civil War.
So he was kind of one of the founding fathers of Iowa, University of Iowa hospitals.
My great-grandfather.
Your
was
great-grandfather. And,
Uncle.
okay. And what was your great-grandma's name? You remember?
My great-grandma? No. I never saw her. I do not know what her name was.
Okay.
Tell us about the time that you would sit with your great grandpa and his buddies and.
Oh, well, the other 3 kids, they were older than me, and they had to go to school. And anyhow, I got to be home for the birthday party, and all these Civil War veterans that were left, that lived around here, would pass me around from one to the other. I was probably 4 years old. And they'd all give me silver dollars. The kids that came home from school that night, I showed them all my silver dollars, and they were very angry at me. And where those silver dollars ended up, I'll never know. But anyhow, it was sort of a poor time around there, so we had to share. And I'm sure they bought food for us or something.
So that was your mother's.
That was
side.
my mother's grandfather.
What about your father's side? What do you remember about his his mom and dad?
I never saw his mother or father. They're buried up in,
West Branch or?
West Branch or West Liberty.
Okay.
And they died before I was born. I don't remember when the date says on the
All right.
stone.
And what about how many brothers or sisters did Grandpa Schaefer have?
My dad had 5 sisters, and he was the only boy. And that's what I had, 5 girls and 1 boy.
And do you
Which
remember
is-
their names? Your aunts?
My aunt, there was Aunt Ida, and I believe she was the oldest. And then there was Aunt Lula, Aunt Carrie, Aunt Arian, and then there was a little girl that had died that I never saw, and her name was Blanche. See? I remembered all that.
That's pretty good.
And I never even thought about it today.
Uh-huh. Well, very good.
And Dad was the only boy, and his name was Insir Caswell.
Where did they come up with that name, do you know?
No, I don't know where any of them came up with any of the names.
So,
And they settled, well, Aunt Arian, she lived in Texas. We went down there when we were little kids on Christmas to see him.
what was her married name, dear?
Foster.
Foster?
Forrester.
Forrester. Okay.
It had 2 R's.
Okay. Okay. And Forrester.
And they're buried in Wichita, Kansas. And they had 2 girls and 2 boys. And Tommy was killed in, he was the oldest one. And he was in the World War II.
Mm-hmm.
And he got shot down over something, over the waters, and they never did find his plane or anything. But they got a lot for him with his name on in Wichita too. Jane and Evan, they lived in Wichita. Those are my kids. And of course Evan isn't, but he's my son-in-law, Jamie's husband. And they can take you there and show you.
So that was Aunt Arian. What about,
No, yeah, that was Aunt Erin, Uncle Earl.
that was her husband's name?
Uh-huh.
What about Lula?
Lula, she lived out in San Diego on a, well, they called them a ranch, more like a farm, I think. We'd call a small farm. But she lived in San Diego.
And is she the one that you would go visit?
I never visited her, no.
Mm.
I saw her,
Mm-hmm.
but I never visited to her home.
Mm-hmm. Did she have any children?
No, they didn't have any children. They had Harold come out, and they, that's my brother, my oldest brother, living brother. And he, I guess we're getting out of order here,
That's all right.
but he'd go out there and work on their ranch, and they'd pay him, and I don't know much about them. I don't remember seeing, they called him Uncle Bige,
Mm.
so I suppose his name was Abijah.
Could be.
And so what kind of ranch they had, I don't know. Harold could tell you, could have told you it. But,
And who else then?
Aunt Ida lived out in Los Angeles. And Aunt Carrie lived out there in Los Angeles. And Aunt Ida had 2 children, and Carrie didn't have any.
And what was Aunt Ida's married name?
Aunt Ida, oh, I know it somewhere along the line. Ida.
They're the ones that had a connection or something to Disneyland?
Her son, Raymond Bonds.
Bonds.
Bonds was their last name.
Mhm.
And I think it was B-A-H-N-S.
Okay.
And they had some kind of a real good friend or a relative that lived in Nichols, Iowa. And at one time they lived in Bettendorf. But who those people were, they never kept in touch with them to tell me what they were going to do.
So, and now you were named after Aunt Carrie.
I was named after Aunt Carrie, and Irene was Aunt Ida's other child, which was, she had two, Raymond and Irene. One time we went out with, you didn't go, did you?
No.
And Nancy never went either that time when Raymond took us all out to Disneyland. And he worked for Disneyland. He made the bears.
Oh, the animatronic ones?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
He, that sang and danced. And he took us all out, and he only had so many tickets, so he gave it all to the older ones, and I paid for Beth because she would have been the cheap one. And so we all went and had a really good time at the Disneyland.
Now, Aunt Carrie, what was her married name?
Burns.
And she wasn't married for very long, was
No,
she?
she wasn't. And I'm wearing her wedding ring. Beth lost hers. Gary got too big for his ring, so I gave him Dad's wedding ring because they matched. And so now we're still getting way out of.
That's all right. That's all right. He can...
Where did Aunt Carrie work?
She worked as a nanny. She took care of children. And they were wealthy people that owned a hotel. And they would send me all the clothes because I'm the only one that they would fit. And so when she outgrew them, I used to remember their name, but I don't remember. Lancashire, no, that was the name of the hotel, Lancashire Hotel.
Bohannon?
Huh?
Bohannon? I don't know where that came.
What?
Bohannon or something?
Bohanna, Lancashire.
Yeah, no, I meant the people's name.
Oh, no, Bohanna was on Grandma and Grandpa's side. This is Daddy's, my dad's side.
All right, now did you take the train out there ever to visit them?
Oh, I took the train out there a lot, and I'd go by myself.
And how come you got to go out there? What did Grandpa do?
My dad worked at the railroad, and he would get passes. And the kids said that he liked me the best because he never got any passes for them. But they never asked for passes, and I begged.
How long would it take to get there? You would start here in the Quad Cities, right?
Yeah.
And you'd end up in Los Angeles?
Well, I had to stop, and I was in Kansas City, and change.
And you did that by yourself?
Yeah,
How old were you?
probably 14 the first time, and then 16, and then when I graduated from high school, I went. Mom went with me with my little brother, Insert, and one time, because she wanted to go out there. And she had a good time. That was a time when they first made escalators. And she was scared to step on them. We had more fun with Mom trying to step on an escalator than anything else, I think.
Okay, now that was all of your dad's siblings. What about your mom's siblings? Shh. Okay. What about your mom's side?
Well, she only had one brother, and that was Uncle Ray. And he helped his dad run the business. They had a root beer stand and a popcorn stand built onto the restaurant,
Do you remember the name of the restaurant?
Schrader's.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Piggy buns, they called them.
Piggy buns.
It was like a pulled pork
Yeah.
sandwich.
Like a
And the
barbecue.
kids,
A barbecue?
sort of like that.
Yeah.
And the kids from the high school would come down. The high school was only about a block and a half. We all went there, and
But Uncle Ray helped then with
Uncle Ray
help with the business.
helped with the business. Uncle Ray and Aunt Lola, that was his wife. They lived with Grandma and Grandpa, and then, excuse me, Bert. And I'd get to come down there once in a while and sleep with them.
Where were you living at that time?
I was living on 4th Street in Silvis, which was about 4 blocks from Grandma and Grandpa's. And at that time, probably several years, I don't know. I went to school from 4th Street there, and they would let me walk down to Grandma and Grandpa's. There was just one stoplight, and that was right there by Grandma's. So, and of course, it was a one-horse town. That's just an expression.
Yeah.
You mean Silvis.
Silvis.
Still is kind of.
And East Moline was not too much bigger
Okay.
at that time.
All right.
A little bit bigger.
Now, Uncle Ray and Aunt Lola, they had a couple of girls, right?
They had Lola and Dorothy. And Harold and I were the older ones. Dorothy would always have to take care of me because Lola and Dorothy, or Lola and Harold were about the same age. Well, maybe a year apart.
Okay.
And then Dorothy was about a year apart from Harold, and I was 2 years younger than Dorothy.
Okay.
So she had to take care of me or watch me. which she was never really happy because she couldn't be with the older kids. She wanted to be with them.
But yet you were kind of close, weren't you?
Yes, we were just like brothers and sisters. Only Harold was the only boy at that time.
Okay.
And then,
So there was you, well, it was Harold and you, and then who's next? As far as your siblings.
well, we had, you want the ones that died?
Sure.
Harold and me, and then Bill, Uncle Bill. And then Alice. We had one in between Uncle Bill and Aunt Alice. And he died. His name was Virgil Clinton.
After
After
Grandpa.
Grandpa. And then Alice, and then I think Virgil was after Alice.
Okay.
But he got sick, and he went to the hospital, and then he died when he was up there, a few short days.
There was another one, Charles.
Charles was her first child, Grandma's first child, and he had pneumonia. And Harold and him were born in Silvis, and I was born in East Moline. And Alice was born in Silvis. Incy was born in Silvis. And Bill must have been born in Silvis too, I'm pretty sure.
Now, were you all born at home?
Yes. There was nobody had children in the hospital at that time.
Do you remember when your younger brothers and sister, were you around in the house?
Well, sure. I was at school when Virgil was born, and I was at school when Alice was born, and then when Incy was born, I was upstairs sleeping in bed.
Oh. So I bet you were happy when you got a sister.
I was very happy. I was very upset when my brother was born, but he was the most beautiful baby that I've ever seen,
Which one is that?
and that's Virgil. Yeah.
Oh, that's
How long did Virgil live?
He was about 9 months old, and he had swollen glands in his throat, and they bursted inwardly. And of course, I suppose today they would have been able to save him, but at that time, no.
Well, tell us a little bit about when you went to grade school. What grade school did you go to?
I went to George O. Barr,
Wow.
and it was Silvis McKinley School. It wasn't George O. Barr. George O. Barr was built after that, but it was in Silvis also.
It was the big red one up on top of the hill, wasn't it?
Yes. And that was McKinley School.
Do you remember any of your teachers?
Yeah. First grade was Miss Peterson. Second grade was Miss O'Donnell. Third grade was Miss And I know her name, but I can't remember right now. Mm.
What was your
Fourth.
favorite? What was your favorite subject?
Math. Mostly math.
Mm-hmm. What kind of things did you do for fun?
Oh, at school,
At school, after school?
we did what little kids did.
Well, what was that?
We played hopscotch, jacks, and jumping rope. We didn't have the stuff the kids got today.
Mhm. Now, you've always told me the story about you didn't particularly like the way Grandma Schaefer dressed you, and you kind of ditched the bloomers or something like that.
Oh, well, that's what they wore back then, was bloomers. They fit around your waist and went down to your knees and had elastic around the knees. And then we had to wear long socks to school. And when or long underwear in the winter time, and then we wore long socks and we wrapped our underwear underneath the socks, and that was the time that I told Angie all about that. And she really screwed it up in school, but she got probably a good grade.
What did you actually do?
That's what I actually
Yeah, but
did.
didn't you take them off and ditch them under a bush or something like
Oh,
that?
no.
No?
Uncle Edward over there, he would take his pajamas and socks when he got mad at his parents.
Oh,
And he would ditch them underneath the bush.
so. Well, now we know. So, what, you graduated from McKinley,
I
8th
graduated
grade,
from
and then you went to United Township.
United Township, which is not standing anymore. You stand 80 years or 90, you don't stand anymore. And
What did you like about high school?
well, if you ask me what I didn't like,
Okay.
we had to walk from home. There was no bus.
That was on 4th Street in Silvis.
No, not
No?
then. We lived on 6th Street then.
Okay.
And we walked from 6th Street, which was not that far from high school, but we had to walk up, I don't know how many umpteen steps. And that's what we didn't like.
So what kind of classes did you have there that you liked?
Math and home ec.
Uh-huh.
And I liked most everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a fairly good student.
What about clubs or anything like that? Did they have those back then?
Oh yeah, they had. I was in the home ec club, and I forget what other kind of clubs they had, but
How about sports? Did they have girls' sports back then?
they had girls' sports, but we had to play. We played basketball, but good girls' rules,
Oh, only half court.
huh?
Half court, you couldn't go across the line.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So.
And
And did you take, like, were you on a team in that there? Like,
Oh, I was never on a team, no.
okay. All right. So how about dances and things like that, or fun things?
No, I wouldn't go. My mom wouldn't let me go to those dances. They were fine, but I couldn't get,
Well, that's because,
because we went to church and they didn't believe in that, although some of them went. But I wasn't one of the chosen ones.
did you have a boyfriend in high school?
Not a steady one.
But,
I had several that liked me.
remember their names at all?
No, not all of them.
Oh, more than one.
I was trying to think of some of the names. What were some of them? I liked one in Wichita, and so did my cousin Elizabeth. Her name was, they called her Libby. And he liked me, and when I came to town, and wouldn't have anything to do with her. But we used to have autograph books like your Facebooks, I guess.
I suppose, yeah.
Anyhow, he wrote a real nice thing in my autograph book, and Libby tore it out. And I never saw it after that. I didn't know she tore it out until I got home. Oh well.
Well, tell us a little bit about the streetcars. You said you used to take streetcars
we
down to
used
the
to
movies?
Huh?
Down to the movies or Lagos or?
Oh yeah, we took streetcars everywhere. They went down the middle of the street. They had tracks and that they rode on, and they had electric wires above them where a wire would touch them and they would go.
Well, how much did it cost to take the streetcar?
Well, a nickel when you were under so much. I forget the age, probably 12 years old. And when you were older, you got to ride 3 for a quarter.
Okay.
And in the wintertime, it was cold, so we would go ride up to St. Mary's Hill, which was about probably 3 blocks, maybe 2 further, and that way we didn't have to walk up the steps. And the streetcar conductor says, "What school are you going?" And we would say, "We're going to St. Mary's," because that's the hill that we went up. And so we did go to St. Mary's, past it, but
So you went into the back way to school.
yes.
Okay.
Anyhow, it probably walked more than if we had walked up the steps, but the steps were probably icy, and we didn't want to do that.
And that's a pretty steep hill.
That was. But I don't think the steps are there anymore, are they?
I don't know. Isn't it terrible? I really don't.
Well, you went here. They built a
Senior living.
senior living place up there, and I didn't know if they had the steps or
know.
not.
I don't know. So, well, after you graduated from high school, What did you do?
I worked for the licorice factory.
Mhm.
And then I got laid off because that was during Christmas time and we had all the candy made ahead. And then I got called back and we wanted a better paying job. I think we got $5 or $6 a week there. And then we went to I quit that factory and I went to the telephone office.
Okay, you were a telephone operator, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, back then you kind of had a special guy before you met Dad. You remember his name? You were kind of,
Ray,
what was his last name?
Dan Hagel.
Dan Hagel. And you were engaged to him, weren't you?
Yes, I was engaged to him.
And what happened to Ray?
He was in the army and he probably met somebody wherever he was.
Okay. All right.
And we decided to call it off. And so then I quit the telephone office because of the war, and we made more money at a factory, and I went and and worked in American Machine and Metals,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's where I met your father.
What did you do in the factory?
At that factory, I was a timekeeper, and I had to keep track of each
Like their time cards.
a time card,
Yeah.
how long it.
So, that was World War II, right?
That was World War II. And then John Deere started paying pretty good wages. And I quit Machine and Metal and went to John Deere. And
What'd you do there?
I was a riveter,
Ooh, Rosie the Riveter.
Rosie the Riveter. And that's what they called me.
Uh-huh.
And what did you make?
Airplane wings. They, we riveted them together, and then I got married.
So tell me, what did Grandpa do?
Grandpa worked for the Rock Island Lines,
Do you know
the railroad.
what capacity?
He was a pipe fitter,
Okay.
and one time they had a viaduct, they called it, and shouldn't do that. They had, did I say a viaduct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and we used to go over there and see him and eat lunch with him sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
We'd run over the viaduct. The viaduct went over the railroad tracks.
Okay, it's kind of like a bridge.
It was like a bridge,
Mhm.
yeah. And on paydays, he'd give us the paycheck, and I'd take it home to my mother,
Mm-hmm.
and she would pay the bills and buy the groceries. And when it what did they call
What?
when they went broke, the whole
The
Bank-
Oh, the
depression.
depression, the Great Depression.
yeah, when the Depression went around, most factories closed down, but the railroad kept going, and my dad had, everybody on the railroad would get to work 10 days a month, and then they would give them groceries, like how many you had in the family. It depends on how much you got. And they'd give you ham and powdered milk and powdered eggs and beans and potatoes and just
And
everything.
the railroad would give you that,
The railroad gave us that
over and above their
over
paycheck.
and above the 10 days of work.
Oh.
So the depression didn't affect you as much as
Well,
some people in the country.
we had enough.
Yeah.
We didn't have to worry about food. And of course, we lived in front of a big field was behind us, and the railroad owned all that. They would give anybody that wanted a piece of land to plant
The garden.
a garden, your corn, and
Mm-hmm.
my dad was pretty good at that. And then Mom and Grandma and Aunt Lola would come and pick the stuff, and then they would can it.
Mm-hmm.
And we had stuff like that for all winter.
And what else about Grandpa? We don't talk about him too much. What did he like to do?
He was very quiet man. He liked to. Well, he was coming home one day from the railroad, and like everybody, they never had money for this and that.
Mm-hmm.
And they patched their shoes with rubber soles, and he stepped on a rusty nail and went clear through his foot. And he got blood poison, and that's what made his foot sort of crippled. And because we had to soak it, he had to soak it every night, and then we had to keep it clean, and he let's see.
How long did
He was off quite a while, but it had to heal from the inside
Okay.
out, and it made an awful scar, and we'd always want to see that scar.
Do you remember what the doctor's name was back there then?
No,
No? No? Okay. So was he a strict father? Was he a disciplinarian?
no,
Nope. Who made you mind?
well, we didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well-
Like your own children.
Most of the time, there was just Harold and I,
Uh-huh.
and Harold was the best brother that there ever was.
Uh-huh.
And Harold and I honestly can say we never did fight hardly.
Okay.
I can't remember anything that he did wrong, and everything that he did, he included me, and I've always told you that.
Yeah, you were pretty good friends.
and we went to church together.
How many times a week did you go to church?
Twice on Sunday and once on Thursday night. They had a Thursday night prayer meeting, they called it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like a regular church service.
And that was at the Silvis Baptist Church
Silvis Baptist Church.
on 11th Street or 10th Street, something like that?
Well, 10th Street Hill, I think.
Okay. So now we know you were a perfect child.
No, I didn't say I was perfect, but we didn't do anything we were told not to do.
Okay. And what about Grandma? Tell us some stuff about Grandma Schaefer.
Well, Grandma was the best mom that there could be.
What made her that way?
Well, she went to church with us, and she listened.
Mm-hmm. What kind of advice did she give you? Or did you even need it?
Well, I remember she had a picture. I think it must have been of Charles's hands, and she told me I could have that for some kind of project at school,
Mm-hmm.
and she would cut it out. And I went and cut it out myself and didn't do such a good job. And she never told me whose hands they were, but I think they must have been Charles. And that was my first, would have been my oldest brother. That was her first child. And and I have a scar on my finger.
Yeah.
And my mother told me not to use a knife or pick up a knife, and I did.
Mm-hmm.
And that scar is still on that finger.
Yeah, that reminds you of your mother, huh?
Yeah.
So, well, no, but Grandma kind of passed away early, didn't she?
Grandma died when she was 47 years old.
What of?
Surgery.
Okay, how come she had to have surgery?
Probably for the same reason we did.
Mm-hmm.
Stomach.
Stomach? Did she have appendix or something?
She
Or
had a hysterectomy.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know if they took the appendix out then or not, but I suppose they did.
Mm-hmm. They didn't have the medicine back there like
No.
we have now, do they?
And she died with a
It's a bowel obstruction.
bowel instruction.
Bowel obstruction.
Obstruction.
Which they call the paralyzed bowel.
Yeah,
back then.
paralyzed bowel.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
That must have hurt. You.
Yes, I was 26 years old when she died.
And how old was it, Alice, then?
Well, she was 8 years younger, so she must have been about 18.
Mm-hmm. So you kind of had a luck after her.
Well, no, I was married,
That's right. That's right. You had a beautiful daughter by then.
and then I did.
But, well, what did you and Grandpa, I mean, your whole family, what did you used to do? Did you go on trips? Did you go on picnics? Where'd you like to
We'd
go?
go on picnics. We didn't have a car. We went on a trip to Texas that one time, and my brother Bill, he had a short arm. One of his bones was missing,
Mm-hmm.
and so they cut a piece out of his leg and grafted it between his elbow and whatever bone they
The
did
wrist.
to the hand.
Mhm.
So he had one solid bone there,
Mm-hmm.
and it was always a short arm.
Mm-hmm.
And he was the one that was ornery.
Okay.
And and he'd always get in trouble.
Okay.
And I think Harold and I was scared of him, so that's why we didn't.
Well, didn't you and Grandma used to go to Chicago on the train with Uncle Bill?
Yeah. Well, Uncle Bill was in the hospital up there, Shriners Hospital for Crippled Children, and he'd have to stay maybe 6 weeks at a time or something like that. And he had his surgery, and they put a cast on him, and he came home, and he did something, and he hit that cast against something because he was mad, and he broke that cast in two, and we had to take him back up to the hospital.
But, well, he probably did that because he was smaller.
Well, he had pneumonia every year, too. And he didn't get to go to school like he should have. And they didn't have school for kids like they do today.
All right. You said that you worked for Deere. You were a riveter?
A riveter,
A
Rosie.
Rosie the Riveter. All right. I always thought you met Dad when you worked at Amatec.
I did.
How did that happen, though? Did you go back to work for Amatec, or did you know him before you went to Deere?
I went to work for the telephone office,
All right.
and I quit the telephone office and went to Amatec.
Why?
At that time, it was American Machine and Metals.
Right. And what did you do there?
I kept the time for each product they made. Right, the time they started and the time they finished. And that way, I suppose that they knew how much to charge.
Right.
Whatever.
Just out of curiosity, do you remember how much you made an hour there at American Machine and Metals?
Well, I made $13.13 at the telephone office, and I probably made about $27 a week. And at it was Amatec, but
Okay,
they called
American
it
Machine and Metals. All right, and that's where you met Dad?
And that's where I met Dad.
How did you meet him?
I kept time.
Well, you kept time watching him, or?
No, he was one of the persons that checked the time in.
All right.
They checked in when they started something,
Okay.
and they checked out when they
Finished.
finished.
Okay. So how did he ask you out, or how did he approach this young, good-looking girl?
Well, I was skinny then, and I thought I was sort of nice looking, and then he talked me into bringing him malts, because I worked from 3 to 11, and he worked till 5, I think. So that's how I met him. Because he worked longer in the daytime.
Okay.
And I'd bring him malts in almost every day for a long time.
Oh.
What flavor? Do you remember?
What do you mean?
What flavor malt did he like?
Oh, what flavor? Any kind.
Okay.
Anytime. He wasn't picky. So, well, when did he ask you out on your first date then?
Well, it was in February, That's when we got married the following year in
Okay.
February. But we they put on really good shows at the what was that show theater in in Davenport?
The Armstrong?
No,
The Orpheum?
the Orpheum. Maybe it was that the big one?
Right.
And they would put live shows on,
Mm-hmm.
and they were really good ones. And Daddy liked that kind of stuff, and I liked it. And he would. He would did you, make the appointment
Get the reservation?
the reservation, and most generally I was off on Saturday,
Okay.
or sometimes whatever night it was on and I was off, we went then to, and we went to an awfully lot of them. But our first date was at that Chinese place over on 20th Street in Rock Island.
Okay. I
Well, it's not there
right,
anymore.
right.
But we would go there for our anniversary almost every year.
Oh, really?
After that, but we went there an awfully lot. They had very, very good Chinese food there.
So, well, do you remember let's go back to when Dad took you to the plays and that. Do you remember the first one he took you to? The name of it?
No, I don't think I do.
What did Grandma and Grandpa say about that? Because you really didn't go to movies or anything, did you, when you were younger?
Not too many, but yeah, we did go to movies.
Did you?
As long as my brother Harold took me.
Okay.
Grandma and Grandpa gave us the money to go.
Mhm.
And we'd walk to the Strand Theater
In East Moline.
in East Moline.
How much were tickets?
Oh, I don't remember, but probably a quarter, 50 cents,
Okay.
maybe at the most.
Uh-huh. Well, all right, so dad's courting you and you're going to Chinese restaurants and out to plays and that. Where did he ask you to marry him?
At the table at my home on 6th Street, which the Dairy Queen is it the Dairy Queen?
On 6th Street in East...
In Silvis.
Silvis.
We lived there for a long time. That's where I got married. I mean, that's where I lived when I got married.
Mhm.
But now and they made it into a drive-through. I think it was a Dairy Queen.
Okay, I'm not sure, but, okay. And how did he ask you? Did he get down on his knee?
No. First he asked my dad, and my dad thought that was the best thing that a man could do, was ask the father
Mhm.
of the bride. And I had a couple of my friends for supper that night. Shirley
Sure.
Lewis,
Mhm.
remember her?
Mhm. Carson, yeah.
And they wrote the date on the napkins. I don't know why they wrote the date. I guess I knew that I was going to get married anyhow, whether he had asked me or not.
Oh. It was either going to be him or somebody else, huh?
Yeah.
But, well, very good. What kind of engagement did you guys have? I mean, you said that you met him in January,
February.
in February, and you were married the following February. 17th, right?
The 17th, that's right.
And
You must have looked it up.
no, I remembered. 1943,
Excuse me, 1944.
1944. Okay. Did you go on a honeymoon?
Not then. We came home to an apartment we had rented and had fixed up because we knew that's where we were going to live.
Okay. I guess I should backtrack. Where did you get married?
Down in Quincy,
Why? In Quincy.
because I turned Catholic
Okay.
because Daddy wanted me to,
Mm-hmm.
and he had more relatives, or his relatives were all Catholic, so they could come. And up here, I would have probably had too many, and at that time, that was a no-no.
Mm-hmm.
But anyhow, nobody got mad at me except Uncle Ray, and he said that it would never last.
I guess you showed him.
Yeah.
So, all right, you got married down in Quincy. Did you have a fairly big wedding?
Oh yes, we had a wedding at St. Francis Church, and then since my parents were not drinkers, they didn't drink any kind of liquor, not even beer.
Mm-hmm.
Grandma wanted it. Grandma Mueller wanted it at a wedding hall that they had down there, and I said no because my parents were not that kind of people. Let's just have it at your home.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that made a lot of work for Grandma, but I helped her. And my mother came and helped her. And my mom and dad came on the train. And I don't know if Grandma Schrader was there or not. I just can't remember.
What about your brothers and Ed Ellis?
No, none of them came.
Okay.
My brother was already married and he lived in California. Or he probably was in the Army at that time.
Right.
Because my Uncle Johnny and Uncle Gene weren't even there. That's Daddy's brothers.
Mm-hmm.
And they were in the Army, some branch, I'm not really sure.
So who stood up for you? Who was your maid of honor or matron of honor?
Aunt Esther was my maid of honor.
That's Dad's sister, right?
That was Dad's sister, and her husband was in the Army. And Melvin Rakers, you remember the
I
Rakers?
knew. That was Dad's cousin, wasn't it?
Yes. And he was the
Best man.
the best man. And Uncle Earl and Uncle Hank were
Like groomsmen?
they were the groomsmen, but they were the ushers
Okay.
too.
Okay.
And it was a bad day. No, I guess that day wasn't too good either. It snowed, but not too hard to ruin everything.
Good.
So
And then how soon did you come back to the Quad Cities?
the next day,
Did you drive or did you take a train?
no, we drove
You drove.
our little 33 Chevy.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Could you drive then?
No,
No. So,
I don't think I could.
okay.
Daddy taught me how to drive.
Okay. Boy, oh boy. So,
No, that was nice because he was very much in love at that time, but
well, I'm assuming you were very much in love at that time also.
oh yeah.
So, Very good. And then you came back to East Moline. Do you remember where this apartment was?
1313 19th Street.
1313 19th Street. Okay.
Or 1319, I'm not sure. 19th Street, that was down Warner's Crossing.
Right, right.
And that was across from where John Deere built a new building, not at that time, but a little bit later.
Right.
And from there we moved up to a garage that was built for a home. They made that into a home. It was really pretty. It was brown. We had 3 rooms. Well, yeah, 3 rooms. We had a living room and we had
A bedroom.
bedroom and a kitchen
Okay.
and a back porch where I did the wash.
Oh boy. So now, was that the one up by Wells School?
Mhm.
Was that
Yeah, that was
that's
the one.
that it's still there today?
That house.
Yes, yes,
I don't go by there too often.
yes. Okay, so did Dad, where was he working at that time? When you came back and
But, well, he was
started
still working at American Machine and Metals.
Alright. Were you working?
At that time,
Yes.
yes. I worked until I got pregnant with you.
Okay.
And but I had already moved to John Deere when
Okay.
I got married. I moved to John Deere. I told him I needed to help my parents out and I could make more money at John Deere.
Okay.
So I got to go. Otherwise, jobs were frozen. You couldn't move.
Huh. So did you help your parents out?
By moving, I guess. No, I did. I helped my dad and mom.
Sure. So okay, this is the little stone house then behind Wells School up in East Moline, and then you moved to another house across what is now 42nd Avenue by Stips, didn't you?
That was the one I moved to first, I think.
Okay, that was a little apartment or something like that.
No, that was the garage that had been made into a house.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Then we moved into well, it seemed like a big house.
The block house.
The block.
All right, all right. So, and then, lo and behold, you were pregnant with your first child.
Yes.
And how was that? Were you sick at all?
Oh, yes, I was sick. Daddy was very protective of me,
Mm-hmm.
and he would cook Sunday meal. We had beets,
Mm-hmm.
and of course they're red. And I didn't keep the beets down very
Oh.
much, and he thought I was bleeding to death when I was throwing them up. But he found out it was beets.
Okay.
Anyhow,
So then I was born in November
November.
of 1944.
9 months, 11 hours, and 25 minutes
After,
after I was married.
well, thank heavens I did come early. But
Well, 1 week, not
1 week
1
early. Yeah.
week, 11 hours.
All right, so I was born, and when did you and Dad move to Bloomington? Or Normal?
While we were living in that stone house,
Okay.
we moved from there to Normal because Dad wanted to run a Dairy Queen and he had the chance. And so we got the Dairy Queen. We bought a trailer, a house trailer,
Mm-hmm.
and we lived in that. We pulled that down there, had it pulled down there, and we lived in there. And Mary DeVille was,
That's Dad's cousin.
she come and helped out with Carol, and or you, of course.
Mhm.
And then when school started, Mary had to go back home, and Dad sold Christmas trees
Oh. Mm-hmm.
for Christmas on the lot there.
Mm-hmm.
And so
You remember how much those Christmas trees cost?
no, I was trying. That's what I was thinking about. I was wondering how much we made on the Christmas trees. I forgot. That's been a long time
Sure,
ago.
sure. He would roll over if he knew how much we had to pay for Christmas trees now.
Oh,
I'm
boy,
sure if it was
here.
above $3. But
Oh, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
What they were.
what else do you remember about that time you lived in Normal?
Well, Dad fell and hurt his hip, and that's why we had to give up the Dairy Queen. Because then he had, when he was a child, he had polio. And so he had a crippled leg anyhow,
Mm-hmm.
or a hip. And at the time he had the first surgery, they could only do a partial hip because they couldn't use a certain kind of, well, they called it a glue.
Now this was when he was little?
This, when he had the polio,
Right.
when he was
Now
little.
didn't he have some sort of surgery when he's little too?
No,
Oh.
just the polio.
Okay.
And his grandma, Outgovers,
Right.
would come and they had to soak him in hot water, not too hot, I
Right.
guess, but for his leg. I don't know whether it was every day or not, but she came and helped Grandma out with him.
That Grandma Outgilbers would have been Dad's grandma.
Grandmother.
And that would have been Grandma Mueller's mother, right? Isn't that correct?
No,
Grandma Mueller was an Outgilbers
Outgilbers,
before
yes.
she married Grandpa Mueller.
yeah.
So,
And she was Aunt Tilly's sister too.
Grandma Outgilbers,
Yes.
But, well, so Dad had to give up his job at the Dairy Queen. Then what did you do?
Then we, Dad worked down in a shop in Quincy,
Okay.
I'm trying to think of the name of it, but I just don't remember.
Gardner in Denver?
What?
Gardner in Denver?
Gardner and Denver. That's right.
Right. Down on the river.
Down on the river. And that was a good job.
Mm-hmm.
He was a tool designer, and that's what he got up here. No, that isn't what he first got. He worked at the toy company.
Back up here. Let's back up, though, to the time that you spent in Quincy, though.
That's where he worked, in Quincy.
For a toy company in Quincy?
No, when he come up here.
Right. Okay, but when he was working for Gardner in Denver, how old was I when we moved there? About 2?
Oh,
maybe 3?
No, probably 2.
So
maybe 2.
that would have been about 1946 or 47.
But you also went to school down there, so we lived down there for a while.
Right. And after we moved back there, where did you and Dad and I live?
We lived on Cook's Lane.
And,
We never moved away from there.
okay.
We never moved and then went back. When we moved, we stayed up here.
And Dad built that house on Cook's Lane, didn't he?
Uncle Ralph built the house.
Uncle
we
Ralph.
had it built,
All right.
and it was a pretty block house, but it was more like bricks
Mm-hmm.
than blocks. And we had an acre of ground, and Daddy would always plant a garden, and I would always, wherever we moved, Dad planted a garden, and I would always can the food from the garden.
Right. When we lived on Cook's Lane, isn't that where I had a lamb?
No, we lived with Grandma at that time.
Okay.
And, well, maybe you did.
I think
Yes.
I did, yes.
You had the lamb at Cook's Lane.
'Cause-
And we brought it down to show Grandma. And Dad had to chase it all around
well,
Grandma's house and down the road and down the street. And, well, they finally got it. But thank goodness we had to sell it because I didn't want to watch it.
leg of lamb for Easter, huh? But do you remember the address on Cook's Lane at all?
Rural Route 2, maybe?
Oh, okay. They didn't have.
No.
Okay. So, when we were living on Cook's Lane, when did Nancy arrive in the family?
You were 5 years old, or almost 5.
Okay.
And we brought her home to that house.
Okay. And she was born in Quincy at St. Mary's Hospital, is that right?
Yes.
On-
And Kathy was born in Quincy at St. Mary's. And Jane was born there.
Okay.
So you were 5 years older than Nancy. And then the other kids came in 5 years, so.
The 3 of them, right. Nancy was born in 1949,
49,
April the 5th,
April the 5th,
and Kathy was born,
on 50,
and that was October.
October, that was 18 months, I think.
Okay,
it's
so that was October 31st. And
And
Jane,
that was on holiday, and that was on Halloween.
right,
And Jane was born 2 years later in October,
the 18th,
the 18th.
1952. So you had your hands full with basically at that time 4 little girls.
Yes.
And Dad continued to work at Gardner and Denver.
Gardner.
And,
After Jane was, I think she was about 9 months old when we moved up here
okay,
to the Tri-Cities.
okay.
And I was so happy we moved up here because we lived in the trailer. No,
We
we
lived on.
lived in a trailer
We
though.
moved from Cook's Lane. Then we moved to North 12th Street. Is that correct?
Oh, we lived
We lived in
there.
an apartment there.
We did.
And then we moved to Hampshire Street in Quincy.
That's right.
And that's where Jane or Kathy was. I think Jane was born there, wasn't she?
Jane was born.
Yes. So what kind of things did we do in Quincy as a family?
We went to see the big bad wolf.
Okay, and where
The
was
cows.
that? Okay, where was the big bad wolf?
Well, I just always said we went to see the big bad wolf.
Okay.
That was just out in the country. You kids always stood at the fence and looked at the cows.
Okay.
And
Did we do a lot with Grandma and Grandpa Mueller or
well,
Aunt Esther and
at
Uncle
that
Ralph?
time
and-
we went a lot to the cemeteries.
Ooh, that
Yeah.
sounds like fun.
Well, the older people always went to the cemeteries on Sunday and took flowers,
Uh-huh.
usually homegrown flowers, and
Mhm.
put them on the graves. But that was their way of spending time with their dead relatives, and they were there. And now we don't go to a cemetery at all. I don't drive anymore, but
Well, you must have done something else besides go to cemeteries and look at cows. Were you involved in anything in Quincy?
well, with 5 kids, no, 4 kids, I guess, until we moved up here. And when we moved up here, we had Edward. So I guess it took us a move to have a son.
All right.
And we were always happy to have a son. And Grandma says, "Aren't you just delighted?" I says, "Well, I'm delighted that we have a son, but I says, I love my daughters just as much." And I says, "I'm glad I got both now." She didn't like that very much. She thought I should love my son more than my children. I says, "You don't divide your love, you multiply it."
That's right. But
And I think I told all my kids that.
I think you have. So, well, Dad used to be involved in minstrels down in Quincy.
No, that was up at our house next to Stips on that little garage house.
Okay.
And the school was right across,
Bollesburg.
and
No, Wells.
School. And the people up there, we got acquainted with them, and they all wanted Dad to be in the minstrel,
Okay.
because Dad was just that kind of a person.
Mm-hmm.
And he was in the minstrel,
But,
and that was when you were born.
okay, that was back in 44, 45, somewhere in that era. But, well then, let's backtrack a little bit. You had Jane in Quincy. Why did you decide to move back to the Quad Cities, or Tri-Cities?
Because Dad was offered the Dairy Queen, and he wanted to be in that so bad. And
Now, wait a minute. He was offered what in the Dairy Queen?
I, a store. Well, we moved back to the Quad Cities because he was making a piece of an equipment for the Dairy Queen to mix the chocolate and the vanilla together.
Mm-hmm.
And they never used it up here, and I don't know if if they ever use it here or not. But they made it, and they used that down in Florida.
So he kind of helped develop the swirl
The swirl.
where you mix the two. But he never patented that, did he?
No, he never patented it. They paid him for it.
Right.
Not much, I don't think either.
Well, obviously you guys couldn't make it with just that, so where
Daddy went to work at the toy
Buddy L?
Buddy L.
Buddy L.
And he developed he made the Texaco Fire oil company's car delivery truck,
Oh, the toy.
the toy,
Okay. Huh. How long did he work there?
till they moved to they moved to Texas.
All right.
But he wanted to make more money, and then he moved to John Deere.
Where did Minneapolis Moline come into?
Minneapolis Moline was the second job that he had,
Okay.
and
And all of these, he kind of was a designer, wasn't he?
yes, he was a designer.
And Ed was born in
Moline.
Moline, and we
Yes.
lived in Silvis at the time, right?
That's right.
Do you remember that address?
146.
About 135. 12th Street?
135 12th Street, Silvis.
Right. Right.
And then you kids went to St. Anne's School, and then I think 21 years later, wasn't it 21? That's about much older you are than Beth?
No, I'm only 10 years older than Beth. Carol's 21 years older than
Oh,
No,
yeah.
I'm more than that.
Beth. Are you?
But anyway, so, and then Beth came along in 1965, right?
Right.
And let's pedal backwards a little bit though. In Silvis, do you remember Dad building a crib for Ed in a little alcove of your bedroom?
Oh, yes. Yes, we had a crib, and we made a bed out of it, in between that sort of little alcove-like thing.
Right, right.
And then we moved over to North 20th,
Right.
and that's where Beth was born, over there.
Right. Right.
There were two little girls that she could play with, but they were a little bit older, and they thought they were something, so sometimes they would tease her, and she didn't like that very well.
Yeah. So what kind of things did we do for fun?
Well, we had what do you call those?
The railroad shanty?
Oh, we did have a railroad.
We had a caboose type, not a caboose,
Not a
but
caboose,
like a
a
switchman's
shanty.
shanty.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Dad fixed the playhouse up for you. I put curtains up for it, and we had a good time. We had picnics. We went with the Benemas. We went with Aunt Alice and Uncle Ed, and sometimes we would have the rest of the family come, and we'd go to a picnic up in the park. And
Did you take any trips at all? Did you vacation at all?
we went and vacationed in Quincy,
Oh, that's right. That was our.
and that was where you kids would all get discussed. Where are we going? To Quincy, and so.
So our vacations mainly consisted of going to see Dad's family.
Dad's family.
That's right. And
Well, what about your community involvement? Both you and Dad were very involved with doing different things for the community.
Well, Daddy was more so. I was the judge for the elections.
That's pretty important. It's important.
And I wasn't elected, but someone voted for me. It was just, we didn't think it would turn out like it did, but my name was in the papers and I had one vote
for what?
for an alderman
Oh, well, Dad was an alderman, wasn't he?
at that time. Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
Maybe they decided that a woman could do a better job.
Maybe.
But well, what were some of the things that just you and Dad did?
Well, we went to shows a lot. There wasn't a lot that we did.
You went to, I remember, a convention you and Dad went to. Was it for government?
No, it was for, we sold better brushes, and it was for their company. We just did that on the side at nights, or during the afternoons, like Saturday or Sunday. They put on those kind of parties.
But you went up to Chicago once, I thought, and met Uncle
Oh.
Gene and Aunt Ruth because he was in politics, didn't you?
No,
Oh,
we didn't
okay.
meet them up there. We went up to Chicago because some of our aldermen wanted, well, it was Joe Ryan, and he was our mayor, and him and what was that guy's name? His son was in your class, or Janie's class.
Ryan?
Ryan and
I don't remember. Carpentier?
no. But anyhow, they wanted to start the
Dowsets.
Dawson's.
And they wanted to start the race.
They wanted to start the racetrack out in the end of East Moline.
Right.
And they wanted to show us how the racetrack was run in Chicago. And they gave us a really good dinner. And we had a good time in Chicago. And they took the aldermen and their wives, and we did have a good time up there then. And the racetrack did go through, and then it went down. And I don't know what's out there now.
Is it off?
Silva
Bentley?
School was going to be built out there.
Right.
I don't know. Are they building that school?
Yes, they are. It's a big school. It should open next year, actually.
Oh.
But, when you were, raising all of us, you had hobbies. What were your hobbies?
Well, I learned how to knit and crochet, and I did cross stitch,
You were a great seamstress.
and I did. I made Daddy a suit,
Mm-hmm.
which, by the way, he was buried in because he hadn't had it very long,
Mm-hmm.
and he was just really proud of that suit.
Mm-hmm.
And when I gave it to him, he says, "Oh, you can bury me in that." We did.
But
It was only a few months that he had that, from Christmas till August.
right. But you used to like to sew, didn't you?
Oh,
You
I
made a lot.
always sewed.
You made a lot for us girls, especially.
Mm-hmm.
Ed did not like blouses, but
What about the birthday cakes? You were the queen of making birthday cakes.
Oh, well, for you kids I was, but I would make them in different shapes and ships and for you, for your birthday. And I was making, other things. I forget all the kind of cakes I did make. Bunny rabbits and Easter egg. And for Jane or Kathy, I made witches and pumpkins. These were all cakes and cut up into different shapes.
mm-hmm.
Jane, I made a doll.
Mm-hmm.
Did you make a turkey for Carol one year?
A turkey. Did I make a turkey for you?
I don't remember, but probably. Maybe I was the turkey. All right, Mom. The last time we talked about all of us kids. How did you feel when your kids started having kids and you became a grandparent?
I felt pretty doggone good. But I don't see them enough, so they don't know me as well as I would have liked for them to have known me.
But,
Yeah, this is why we're doing this.
you always bought them nice things and sent them cards. I think you're famous for your $2 bills. I mean, I know the great-grandkids look forward to doing that. How did you start the $2 bill tradition?
Well, Betty, Jim's mom, actually gave the kids $2 bills, and I told her, I says, "I think I'll take that over, Betty."
Uh-huh.
And she gave them $2 for a long time. But they seemed to like that. I used to give them gum, but that got all over everything, so we quit that.
So, well, last year we celebrated your 90th birthday. We had it out at the golf course. That was very nice, and a lot of people attended that. And we asked them to kind of ask you to answer different questions. So I've got a list of these. What's your favorite food?
My favorite food? Well, I like pie, I guess.
Pie? What's your favorite kind of pie?
Rhubarb.
Uh-huh. Okay, you used to make a good rhubarb pie. But,
I like to make pies.
this number 3 says, Dad was an inventor. Do you remember some of his inventions?
Well, he made a pan that would let all the grease out of
Like the rotisserie?
well, he did make a rotisserie, but he made this pan,
Like a meatloaf?
yeah, for a meatloaf, and it left all the grease out, and it made the best meatloaf.
Hmm.
And he did make a rotisserie,
Mm-hmm. That let all the grease out?
yes.
Do you remember his famous boat
His famous boat.
that he made?
Well, he made a boat that had a tent on the top, and he tried to
Patent it.
patent the boat, and we put a zipper in it, and when it rained, it would be all covered,
Mm-hmm.
and we could go camping in it at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
But he couldn't patent it because somebody else had already sent in a patent for it, and he didn't get that. But it was better than the one that he patented or tried to patent.
Huh. So any other gizmos? He was always coming up with something.
The pickle barrel.
Oh, the pickle barrel. Yes.
Yes, he had a pickle barrel, and he made a really pretty barrel that rocked back and forth.
cradle.
A cradle, and it rocked back and forth, and it was for Carol's, I don't know whether it was the second or third child, the second.
And Brian, I believe, was the first baby to sleep in that.
And he bought little plaques to put the kids' names that slept in it. I don't know where it ended up at or how many names are on it, but
I think a lot of grandbabies have slept in that cradle. The last one was Anderson.
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 Yeah,
So
that's-
that's a great grandbaby that slept in that cradle. A lot of grandchildren and great grandchildren have slept in that cradle.
How did Anderson get it?
Jane took it to Wichita. I had them bring it to my house, and then Jane put it in the back of the car, and they took it to Wichita. Okay, next question. You and Dad always had a garden. What did you grow? And it says, share some of your canning secrets.
Well, I just canned the way my mother did, and we had jelly and jams, and I fixed them real pretty in the jars. Stips. They gave us pears, and I put them in there just so they'd look really nice. And somehow or other, they were a certain kind of a pear that turned pink when you cooked them in the jars. A lot of the jars of stuff that we canned canned in the oven. That was, you put them in hot, and then we canned everything from chickens to
Pickles.
to all kinds of
Vegetables.
all kinds of vegetables we had.
Pickles.
Pickles,
Grape juice.
Yeah.
grape juice.
Yep.
Tell us about the story about cooking the chicken.
Oh, Daddy went and the farmer was culling the chickens. That meant he was getting rid of his crop. And Daddy would kill them and gut them. And we cooked the meat in,
Pressure cooker.
Oh, yeah, the pressure cooker. And he got too much meat in the pressure cooker, and it exploded, the top part. And we had just washed the ceiling, and all the grease just stuck to the ceiling. And I made Daddy wash the ceiling over again. But that was the best chicken that we ever had. We canned it in pint jars, and we either made gravy with it, or we sometimes have
Chicken and dumplings.
chicken and dumplings, and we'd have salads, and I forget how many chickens we had, but we picked it all off the bone.
So, another question asks, we always had wonderful Christmases with a room full of presents and wonderful food. How did you celebrate when you were growing up? How did you celebrate Christmas?
Well, we always had about the same thing as we did. We had the same kind of presents, only not as much. We had a artificial fireplace. My dad fixed a light bulb in it, and we had one when we were growing up with you kids.
So did you go to your aunts and uncles, or did you have cousins over when you were growing up?
Well, there was only Dorothy and Lola, which was my only two cousins that lived around there, and my grandpa and my grandma and my aunt and uncle, and that's the only cousins we had.
Do you remember one special Christmas present that you received?
I had a beautiful doll, I thought, and that was a doll that I'd got for Christmas, and we went to Texas to celebrate with an aunt that lived there, and well, actually 3 aunts lived there. And as far as I remember, they lived in Texas for a while.
Okay, we talked about how you decorated, but do you have one particular Christmas that you received a present that you still remember?
The doll.
The doll?
And that was the year that we opened our Christmas presents a little bit early, and my mom and dad wouldn't let me take the doll with me because they said it might get broke or I might lose it and the kids might throw it around or something. And so I had to wait until after Christmas to play with that doll.
What was the doll's name?
I was afraid somebody would ask me. I don't remember. My only child.
That's all right. Okay, somebody else wants to know, what was the first car you drove? Now you said Dad taught you how to drive.
And that was a 33 Chevy.
A 33 Chevy. All right. He probably thought you were a pretty hot mama there, being able to drive wherever you wanted, huh?
Well, that was the only car we had. And yeah, I thought I was pretty good. That was after we were married, really. And I could take my mom to the grocery store. And I thought I was a pretty good daughter to be able to do that for my mother. She always had to go on the bus, or if we went to Mueller to shop for meat, we'd do that. We'd go on the bus.
Grandma and Grandpa never had cars?
No. They had one, but it was after I got married and had some of the children. And they moved sort of out in the country in a cement block house. And that was the only way they had to get in. So, get into the town and do their shopping on a bus.
All right, this one asks, how old were you when you made your first telephone call? And do you remember who you called?
I probably called my brother in California, but I don't remember when we had our first telephone. But we had a 4-party line. That would be an A and a B. And if somebody was talking on it, then you had to wait until they were off to get your chance. But I worked at the telephone office, and we had a private line then, and we didn't have to pay for it.
Because you worked at the phone company.
Yes.
That was kind of a perk.
Yes.
All right, this one. Share one piece of advice you feel would help everyone live a better life. You've lived many years. What would one piece of advice you would give to your family?
Treat them all alike. Your children. Do for one like you would do for the other. And you don't I know what I want to say, but I can't say it.
Do unto others
as you would have them do unto you. The golden rule.
I just
You probably don't want to say you show any favoritism.
no. And on their birthdays, I tried to buy the same amount of money's worth. I just did what I knew best at the time.
All right, now we're gonna play a little game.
Again,
A game. It's called word association. I'm going to give you a name, and you're gonna tell me what your thoughts about this name would be. The first name is Edward, your husband.
I thought he was the most wonderful person in the world.
Okay. Second name is Carol.
She was my first child. And then we didn't have one for 5 years.
So she was pretty spoiled, wasn't she?
Sort of. Although I don't think so. I mean, we didn't spoil our kids. What we did for one, we did for the others.
Next name is Nancy.
Nancy, we wanted a little girl to go in the family to be with their sister Carol. And we wanted well, there again, have somebody in the family that would live with us. And
Or add to the family. She was a wonderful person.
yes, she was a wonderful little girl.
She still is. Humble too. What about Kathy? When you think of the word Kathy, what do you think about?
Well, we probably thought about not another girl. We wanted a boy, but then that's all right. And then when we had Jane, we Uncle Gene, he wrote on a car with some kind of a special red ink, Edward and Carrie Mueller and daughters on the car. Probably it's still the same 33 Chevy. I don't know.
So that's Carol, Nancy, Kathy, and Jane. How about Edward, your son?
I was very proud of him, and I wouldn't say that I was more proud of him than I was my girls. And I didn't tell Grandma Mueller that, and she sort of got hurt. She says, "How come?" I says, "Because I don't love him any better than I love my daughters." I says, "My daughters mean everything to me," and I says, "and he means everything to me too. So they all mean the same."
How did Dad react when he finally got a boy?
Well, I think he was very happy, but he didn't go overboard because we didn't want to have you girls think that you weren't as welcomed as he was.
And now your last, Beth Ann.
Beth Ann, well, we wanted a little boy, but we got a little girl. And after Daddy died, I was really happy that we had a girl, because she was there to help me through a lot of the hard times. And she did.
Brought joy to you.
And she used to cook for me 3 pounds of hamburger with probably a half a pound of spaghetti. And then she'd come up with some pretty cute little things.
Pineapple pie.
Yeah, what was her recipe for the pineapple pie? Do you remember?
Yes, her recipe was to open the can, make a pie crust, dump the can of pineapple in the pie crust, and cook it. And then she wanted, I think Edward said, well, it would be really good if we had some whipping cream to put on top of it. She says, oh, I made that too. And it was just plain, practically milk. And I says, Beth, that ain't how you make whipping cream. She says, well, I run out of clean cups.
So, you had a good time with your children, but your children grew up and moved away from home, and then you started to have grandchildren. Can you remember any favorite stories about your grandchildren?
Well, I never could get Mark to say yes. All he'd do is shake his head no. So Grandpa and I had taken Mark and Brian out Sunday afternoon to buy him an ice cream cone. And I said to Mark, do you want an ice cream cone? And he'd shake his head no. I says, unless you say yes, you don't get it. I says, I'll stop and we'll get Brian one. Yes, Grandma, yes, Grandma, yes, Grandma. Mark said he wanted one. And so he got his ice cream cone and he learned to say yes.
So you have Becky and Brian and Mark and Tim and Matt. Then you have Angie and John and Carrie and Emily. And then Danny and Josh and Amanda and Andrew. Did I skip anybody? No. Got them all. So when your grandchildren grew up,
Did you say Josh?
I did. I said Josh.
Okay.
I did. But when your grandchildren grew up, they started getting married and moving away from home. Then you had great-grandchildren. How did that make you feel, to be a great-grandma?
Old. No, I never ever felt old until I got 90. And then I did start to feel old.
So, can you name the great-grandchildren at all? How many do you have in all, dear?
I think 13 or
Thir-
14.
13 or 14. That's quite a group that you and Dad all because two people fell in love. Look at all the people you've created. Knowing that all of your children and their children and their children will probably see this video that we're making, what would you like to say to them in closing?
Get your education. That's what Dad would always say. Get your education. If you dare to teach, you must never. Let's see, how did that go?
You must never stop learning.
If you dare to teach, you have to keep on learning anyhow. That wasn't exactly the way that, but that was written on a school that you went to school, when Carol went to school, and to kindergarten. Or did you go to kindergarten? You went to first grade.
I was
at
one of the
St.
intelligent
John's.
ones.
There was that cave, right, with the paintings on it that Carol went to school at,
Yeah,
with all the other cave children.
yes.
So, no, would you like to give a kind of a,
What?
would you like to tell everybody that, maybe send your love to everyone and
Love and don't be jealous of one with the other. Because you're loved the same as you grow. And you're all loved the same. You don't divide your love, you multiply your love. And that's the way it should be all through your life.
Thank you.
I think we're done.
Is there anything else you'd like to say?
Goodbye.